Hey guys! What's up? How's it going? So here we are at the premiere of Metal Reborn on the big screen, Twilight Drive-In. It's turned out to be a huge success. There's tons of people coming out despite our BC weather. And now it's available online for you guys to check out right here on metalreborn.com. Welcome back to Make It Kustom, everybody. You may or may not have seen one of our previous videos on making circles with the plasma cutter. If you have not, go check it out. I teach you how to make a circle tool so that you can make stuff like this. So what these are and what this video is about is how to make a rectangle tube bend the hard way. What I mean by the hard way, you may not know that reference. If you're bending HSS, hollow structural steel, like rectangle tubing, there's an easy way and a hard way. The easy way is, pretend this is rectangle tubing. If you were to bend it this way, like this, that would be the easy way. It's got less material to bend. If you were to bend it like this, that would be the hard way. What I'm gonna do today is show you how to make a tube donut that you can cut up and use the radiuses to make whatever structure you wanna make. And the motivation behind me making this video is a couple of people asking about how I made the floor bracing for the Model A. Now, Christina hopefully can find a couple clips to put in there for the floor bracing in the Model A. It's got nice bent 1x2 rectangle tubing for the floor bracing, makes it look really nice. I did the exact same thing what I'm doing today to make that. I had to make my own rectangle tube bend that I could cut up as if it were an exhaust tube bend so that I could make that floor structure. Here are the donuts that we're gonna make this tube bend out of. Basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna weld these on all four sides. It's a lot of welding and a lot of finishing, but if you do it nicely, it's so worth it. In order to kind of make this happen without it going in a weird direction, I'm going to make a bunch of spacers to clamp in between these two to hold them at the right height so that we can bend some flat bar and make our circles all the way around. You might be wondering what the hell that tank is. That tank is gonna help us bend our flat bar because not everybody has a roller. I've got a roller back there that I could just feed this through and it'd make a nice little ring and you guys would all be like, oh, well, I don't have a roller. Well, you don't need one, no excuses. You can just use a welding tank or anything, doesn't matter. There's always a way to figure it out. So I'm gonna cut a bunch of these pieces of 3/4 inch. This is just something from the scrap bin, 3/4 inch square bar. I'm gonna just put a few pieces in there that we can clamp in and clamp this thing together while we wrap it, tack it, weld it, make it happen. Come along. We've got some spacers cut here. I'm just gonna clean up the edges, deburr them a little bit. Now these came fresh off the circle cutter. You know, I just wanna reiterate, when you are circle cutting with that type of a cutter, you have to be as smooth as you can be. You saw me, I kinda like started here. I started with myself turned over and kind of worked my way around. It's important that you can do a full sweep without having to be jerky and stop. That way you get a nice smooth circle out of there, also less slag. If you're nice and consistent with a plasma cutter, you don't get as much slag. It's the same thing with a torch. It's funny when you see somebody torch with oxyacetylene and you get all that terrible slag. Well, if it's held in like a CNC or if you're really smooth with it, that slag falls off. Same deal here. So less slag, less cleanup. Try and be smooth. I'm just gonna clean these up and get the mill scale and slag off. There isn't much slag, but when you're TIG welding, mill scale, like this brown stuff, that can affect your weld. I'm not saying that you have to TIG weld this stuff, it's just nice when everything's clean. Okay, so now we can start clamping these pieces together, spaced apart. Now I'm trying to make 1x2 rectangle tubing, or as close as I can get to it. So this is 1/8 material. It's actually a tiny bit thicker than 1/8. It's 10 gauge, but it's fine for what we're gonna be using this for, demonstration. So I'm gonna put these 3/4 inch blocks, 3/4 inch plus 1/8 plus 1/8, 1 inch. These are 1.75 inches wide, so that plus 1/8 will be 2 inches. So we're gonna go 2 inches this way, 1 inch this way, and that is a rectangle tube. This is the HSS tubing that we would be using with something like this. So it's 1 inch here, 2 inch there. And if you were gonna make bracing with this type of material, it's a great size. That's why we're making the bend. Now I need to clamp this all together. Okay, we've got our spacers in place, kind of like that. I'm gonna start clamping. You're gonna want this to be pretty accurate. So I leave the clamps just a little bit snug so that we can kind of tap around with a hammer after, make sure that we're as perfect as we can be. So just a little snug. This will be a little bit easier on us. Put the C-clamps on the inside, and we'll do the outside first. So using a square, I'm gonna line these up. You can see how we're not quite there yet. We're gonna have to move it over a little bit, so I'm gonna make sure these are loose. Check it in a couple of spots. And I think that's pretty good. So we're squared up, top and bottom. Now, I'm gonna bust some of the slag off of this piece. I didn't have enough flat bar. I got most of it. Quick grind on this piece of flat bar here. Okay, so I'm just gonna bend this thing around here. It's a little bit tighter of a curve than we really need, but we should be able to spring it back a little bit. I'm gonna use a hammer just to try and get some of these flat spots out of it as well. Okay, we are getting pretty close to what we want to see. This little flat spot here, little tight spot there. I'm just finagling it a little bit, try and get as close to a circle as we can get. And then the rest of it, we'll be able to just kind of clamp and tweak and work as we go around this circle. There is a little bit of overlap here I will have to cut off. But for the most part, it's pretty good. I'm trying to leave a bit of a gap, not so much a gap, but a corner joint for the weld. I think it's important, especially if it's gonna be something structural, like you wanna be able to fill that up with weld. That's why I've cut the sizes that I've cut. This is 3/4, these are 1 inch overall, and 1/8 of an inch on each joint there. So that is why I've left that corner joint. It's just a way stronger weld. All right, I'm gonna bust out the baby welder today. This is just a little 110 welder. I'm not using big guns on this. Jacked it all the way up. For this thickness material, you can jack a 110 welder all the way up for it. So I'm gonna pick a spot where I think it looks really good. As far as fit, I mean, quite a bit of it does look pretty good. I'm gonna double check square on here. I mean, that looks pretty good. It's fitting nice and tight, nice and square. Oh, we've got a tack down there. We're gonna tack right there. All right, so we made it most of the way around there. I'm just going to trim off the end of the circle here. And we should be able to close that up, just like that. All right. Actually, getting ahead of myself, I want to leave the clamps on while we weld it. Reason being is that heat from welding is going to want to start doing stuff, and the least amount of stuff it does, the least amount of mess up it'll be. If that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna tack a few more spots, then I'm gonna do a grind, and then we're just gonna weld the crap out of it. So let's tack a few more spots here. Let's weld it. All right, we're all done welding. Have a look at that. I welded right on the corner edge, just like I said. This is the whip and pause welding technique that I have talked about before in a couple of the other videos. I like doing open root corner joints like that. It's nice to have a radius already on the weld. It seems like there's a little bit less grinding that way. But that's with MIG, you could TIG it and it'd be the same thing. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna unclamp it. I'm gonna take out our little spacers that are everywhere, since we don't really need those anymore. And then we are gonna cut a piece of the pie, so to speak. I'm not gonna actually weld in the inside of the donut now. The reason being is that it's just really difficult to grind that quite nicely. So what I like to do when I'm making these is leave it where it's at. I'm gonna grind these edges nice, and then we're gonna cut the pie as if we're gonna use a chunk of it. And then I'll show you how to put in the inside piece, finish it off, and we'll have our finished tube bend. Ooh, this thing's hot still. Atsui desu ne. It means it's hot, isn't it, in Japanese? One of the 4 things I remember how to say. These might be in there pretty good. So we can pry them out of there, not have too much trouble. Oh, they're really in there. They don't want to come out. When I cut it open, I guess I'll get those out of there. Be easier. Okay, I'm gonna grind it up. Just use a 3-inch ankle die grinder. I know a lot of people are asking me like, oh, what kind of die grinder do you use? Like the cheapest one ever. Harbor Freight in America or Princess Auto here. These are just the cheap ones that you can get there. I love them. I mean, I run my compressor pretty hot, like not at 90 PSI, I run it at like 110. So kind of any grinder is gonna work really good at 110 PSI. So I just buy the cheap one. Our Princess Auto, I don't know about Harbor Freight, but if you break a tool that you bought at Princess Auto and you go back and be like, I broke this, they're like, here you go, here's a brand new one, bye. You know, I don't know why they do that, but they do. So, and I never really break them, so that's what I use. As long as you keep them oiled, they're fine. Speaking of which, there's a couple of drips to this guy. Got a lot of grinding ahead of it today. If you're looking for good discs, these are the ones I use. These are called Cubitron discs. They're from 3M. This is not a paid advertisement. I'm just telling you what I use. They are the best disc I have ever used, period. Nothing has touched them yet. If you have discs that you sell, send me some. I'll try them out against these. Good luck, because these are the sharpest discs ever. They're very expensive. They only come 15 in a box. I think they last about 3 times longer than pretty much anything else. So if you're looking for good discs, they're expensive, but you get more than you pay for. I'm gonna go at it with 36 grit to cut the weld down, then 80 grit, and then we'll give it a DA. Just real quick, the way I like to grind stuff like this, that kind of matters too. So I figured out, I'll just quickly explain it. I'm gonna grind really flat, get the edge of the weld off till it's flat like I've done there. And I stop right there. You don't want to go any farther than that. And then I'm gonna grind the outside, same thing, right till I hit the parent metal. And then I'm gonna grind on a 45 all the way around. And you can see really how consistent you're being. Nice camera work there. I saw that pan out. Nice. You can see how totally consistent you're being. So you grind the top, grind the side, then you've got almost a 90-degree angle, and then you can grind that on a 45, and you can really see how wide your 45-degree grind is, and make sure that that's even all the way around. That's how you know that it's even. I think that some guys overlook explaining that because it took me a while to really kind of get that down. Like those little things kind of help when you're doing stuff like this for your end product. So grind the flats, grind the corner, and then start rounding it out. Be as consistent as you can be. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like after I faced this side. I faced all the way around the edge. Stop as soon as you get to the parent metal. And by the parent metal, I just mean whatever the weld is touching. It's kind of a term. And then I went 45 degrees on here. And to make this consistent, I just kind of eyeballed how wide my 45 degree is and tried to be as consistent as I could all the way around. That way you've got a good starting point for radiusing an edge. Like the reason I say this is because I want a consistent radius all the way around, like there's a consistent radius on this tubing here that we're trying to mate up to. The next step is that I'm gonna change this to an 80 grit roll lock. That one right there. And I'm gonna do the same thing, but I'm gonna go on, instead of a 45-degree angle, I'm gonna do, 22.5. And then whatever that one is, and try and be consistent all the way around. And that's gonna get us our radius so that it's easier to blend. Just be consistent with your grinding. It's kind of the key thing here. Okay, we're all done grinding. Ta-da! We're still not done yet though. I'm gonna chop a chunk out of here and then we're gonna finish the bottom and grind that out, and then we'll be done. Okay, I'm gonna chop it. Here's a little tip. I don't know whether or not this is gonna pop in or pop out because now we put a ton of weld into this piece. If you're using a zip cut and you've got it all the way in there, it could bite. If this thing goes and clicks in as soon as you break through, it could break a disc. So I know I've got a guard on there, but why let it jam, right? It could jam. So I'm gonna finish it with a hacksaw. Okay, it popped out, so it probably wouldn't have bit our disc, but could have gone the other way. So I'm just gonna peel off approximately a 90 out of it. Pop your spacer out. Okay, now I'm gonna use this flat bar and a chunk of steel. Don't ask me where I got this thing, but whenever I see heavy hunks of different shapes for stuff like this, I just grab them and I stick them in my dolly bin. You never know when you're gonna need it. Let's see, we're getting pretty close. Okay, I think we're just about there. Yep, perfect. there it is. She's all closed up. It's a lot easier to fit and weld that piece in if you already cut your bend. So once again, whip and pause technique. When the joint and the heat are perfect, you know, you're filling just as much material as you need, not too much, not too little. So, whew, that's hot. It's easy to grind it off. So I'm gonna grind that all up. To grind that inside area, I'm gonna use a die grinder with a drum sanding wheel on it. That's gonna help me kind of get that nice radius in there, and then we'll finish it off with this, and we're done. All right, here we are, we're done. There is the tube bend. This is what this is all kind of working up to be. Here's our piece of tubing. Check that out. That's what it's for. This donut, you can cut whatever angle you want, finish the bottom edge, and then you can make your own tube bends like that. So I hope you guys like this video. This is a technique that I've used a couple of times. It seems like it's a lot of work, but when you really think about it, yeah, it took a few hours to make this piece, but this one donut is enough pieces to do the whole floor of that Model A. I actually used up the whole 360 degrees making the cross members in there. So, I mean, worst comes to worst, there's a few hours and then it made your life easier and more beautiful when you're fabricating your floor inner structure. Hopefully you guys like this tip. Thanks for watching Make It Custom. I just wanna say that Metal Reborn is now online. It's free for everybody to check out, so go to metalreborn.com, Speedline Filmworks. They've got a YouTube channel as well. Check them out. Also, Bellows Customs. They've got a 39 Lincoln Zephyr 3-window coupe that's chopped and it's deadly. They've also built a ton of sleds. He's got a YouTube channel, Bellows Customs. There's this wicked time lapse of him chopping, I think it's a 37 Ford 5-window coupe. Just a killer YouTube channel. Check him out. I'm sure you'll love it. Thanks a lot, everybody. Don't forget to like, click subscribe, hit notifications, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody.